Backgrounds have always been a little lacking in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. It's something you throw on your character sheet, then immediately forget about. But what if I told you it could be monstrous? Or maybe you're two souls inhabiting one body, or even just a farmer? On top of that, you actually get some useful abilities out of it. We're going to cover some fun backgrounds that you can add to your game from the community in this week's Homebrew Breakdown. Sometimes in D&D, you just want to add a little pizzazz to your character. Maybe they weren't always what they appear to be. What if I told you your character could have once been monstrous? With the background monster, you're a dragon who's been permanently polymorphed, a vampire who's been raised from the dead, a lycanthrope that's been cured of the disease, or any number of other monsters who are now changed into a living humanoid and are embracing this new lease on life. Perhaps you've been alive for 1,000 years, or maybe you were afflicted as a child and you're just now getting to see the world through a common person's eyes. Either way, what are you going to do with this second chance? With this background, you gain proficiency in intimidation and survival. You learn a language of your choice and one that you spoke as a monster. And some of your starting equipment includes 10 feet of the chain that once bound you, and a sketch of what you once looked like as a monster. The feature of this background is, you're a little off. You're not comfortable in this new skin you have, so you act a little odd. And as long as you're not doing something intentionally offensive, dangerous, or against the law, people just tend to ignore you. This background is a great way to add a little flavor to your character, and it gives the DM a bunch of tools and plot hooks that they can play with. So, why be normal when you can be a monster? So many people are worried that they wrote too much for their backstory, or that you didn't write enough when other players show up with their binders of information to session 0. Why not just leave it up to fate then? With the Amnesiac background, you can. Put simply, you woke to find yourself in an undergrowth, with no recollection of where you are or how you came to be there. And you've been wandering ever since. Your only clues were the contents of your pockets and the clothes on your back. Was your lack of memory a mundane or magical accident? Maybe it was intentional by a long-standing foe, or maybe, just maybe, you purposefully did it to yourself. Either way, you're here now. It's time to figure out the why and the how. With this background, you gain proficiency in insight and survival. You learn one exotic language from a list that includes Celestial, Abyssal, Draconic, and more. And your equipment includes a handwritten letter in the exotic language that you chose, a gemstone worth 50 gold pieces, and a set of fine exotic clothing. The feature of this background is a flashback. You know you've been here before, and you can ask the DM questions about one location that you know you frequented before you lost your memory. While this is a very cool background, I would highly recommend working with your DMs on this mystery background that your character has. Maybe give your DM a list of possible past lives that could have been to give them a jumping off point. I know I would jump at the chance to work with a player on a background like this. When we create our characters' backstories, there's usually a very important person from our past that we're no longer around, but we carry them with us wherever we go. But what if you were actually carrying them with you? With the dual soul background, you were once two separate people, perhaps siblings or lovers. You might have even been sworn enemies. But something happened in the past, and now you are both sharing the same body. You might even have your disagreements, but you both agree on one thing: survival. Perhaps you were once lovers, and in one final act to each other, you took the other into your body so that they could live on in some way or another. Perhaps you were once sworn enemies, and while you were foiling their plans, a spell went wrong and they are now a permanent part of you, and your goal is to remove them so that you can slay them once more. With this background, you gain proficiency in 2 skills that this soul learned when they were a separate person. You gain proficiency in a game or gambling set that you learned how to play to keep yourselves entertained, and you learn 2 skills each soul knows separately, and the soul that is not piloting the body often translates it into common for the other. The feature of this background is when things get really interesting. You have duality, which means you can switch between souls when you want to. When you do, switch character sheets to the other soul, keeping your strength, dexterity, and constitution the same as a constant, and your hit dice is always a d8 no matter which class the soul chose. This background seems like a great way to spice things up, especially if you've been playing for a while, and I would definitely not recommend this for new players, but this will bring a whole new meaning to arguing with yourself at the table. Have you ever had the idea to build a Wreck-It Ralph stylized character, where some villainous person has made the conscious choice to change their ways, and even though you are a bad guy, you are not bad guy? With the "Are we the baddies?" background, you can make your villain to hero arc a reality. Your people are not known for their heroism. In fact, quite the opposite. Your people are often found attacking adventurers on roads, burning down villages, and being recruited into the army of a greater villain. But not you. For some reason, you have chosen to turn over all the leaves and decided to set out to become a hero. From the bandit who was shown a little mercy from the adventuring party that were way too powerful for him to be trying to rob, to the orc that thought, maybe we shouldn't be burning down every town we come across because these are people's homes. This background has so much opportunity in it. With this background, you gain proficiencies in intimidation and survival. You learn two bad guy languages, the likes of which include Goblin, Gnoll, and more, and various equipment that includes a hooded cloak and a keepsake that you liberated from an adventurer. The feature of this background, harmful stereotypes, puts your past to work for your future. While you may not be evil anymore, other people don't know that. So, if somebody is bothering you, all you have to do is show some teeth or do a rude gesture and they'll usually run off screaming. My initial thought with this is to have a party composed completely of foot soldiers from the armies of evil lords that all got defeated, and they all decided to become heroes instead. Definitely saving that for future use. Well, everybody usually starts playing Dungeons & Dragons in the same way, with the elven wizard named Feranthriel, or the halfling rogue named Seamus Shortstack. It all eventually comes to a peak where you try to play 3 kobolds in a trench coat, or a magical hat and a magical sword piloting a training dummy in tandem. If you play for long enough, it all eventually comes to this point. I want to play a guy. Not special, not dreary, not powerful in any way, shape, or form, just an ordinary guy that somehow stumbled his way into saving the world. If you're at that point, let me introduce you to the farmer background. You were what most people are, a farmer. You worked on the Lord's estate, or you worked for a company producing food from the land in exchange for food, shelter, and protection and other benefits. But something caused you to leave that life behind. Were you kidnapped and experimented on? Was your house burned down? Were you on a walk during a break and stumbled across an evil group performing an evil ritual that was in the middle of being thwarted by a group of powerful adventurers? Either way, you're here now. Might as well make the most of it. With this background, you gain proficiencies in animal handling and nature. You gain proficiency in land vehicles and farm implements. And you can only speak common because why would you speak any other language? When it comes to the feature of this background, you can either be of the land or of the people. If you're of the land, you lack a formal education, but you have a working knowledge of astrology and meteorology, and can even predict the weather out to a couple of hours or even days if you're lucky. If you're of the people, you're just as mundane as everyone else on the street. Guards don't give you a second glance, people just trust that you're another face in the crowd. However, if you're in a place where commoners shouldn't be, you stick out like a sore thumb. This is the best take I've seen at building an everyday average Joe, and it has many opportunities to flavor it in many different ways. So if you want to be ordinary, why not just be a farmer? Backgrounds are usually the throwaway of the character creation process, but it offers so much insight into who your character is and where they come from, so don't neglect it. If you want to check out any of these backgrounds deeper, the DndBeyond links are in my description. Tell me which background was your favorite in the comments, and also, tell me if there's backgrounds that you'd like me to cover in this series. Remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this, and be on the lookout for more videos in the future. Until then, I'll catch you in the next breakdown.